Hi, I'm Karlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Karlin Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, karlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel where we delve into the cult that is the radical far left, and occasionally we look at the far right as well. We look at different aspects of the culture war, but we do spend most of our time on the left because, you know, we're going to lose to the left. I know that's a totally uplifting way to start the show today, but I have never been more convinced in my life that we are going to lose to the left. Now, some might say that's a bad thing. Some might say that is the ultimate black pill. And of course, yeah, it is very black pilling to know for absolute certain that we are headed into the Marxist utopia. And based on my calculations, and I do actually have reason to say this, I did actually calculate a timeline for the Marxist utopia takeover. I think we're going to be lucky to make it to 2050. I think we got maybe 30 years left. And I don't think there's any way in hell we're going to turn this around. So it does actually make more sense to spend time on the left because the right is useless. They're never going to fix anything. And I would really like to know what to prepare for because I think I'm still going to be alive in 30 years and I would really like to know what to prepare for, and I think other people would like to know what to prepare for as well. And so that is where we do spend the bulk of our time, and you're going to find out why I'm saying that we are absolutely going to lose to the left in a second. And oh yes, it has to do with James Lindsay. which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that. For those who have not heard the news yet, I'll be discussing that news in a second. Before we get there, I do just want to let people know what we are going to be doing today. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. We do actually have stuff that we're doing today that is important. We are going to be watching the back half of this Centering Racial Justice in Sex Education show that we started yesterday. We're going to be watching the back half of it today. And so that is still going to be happening, and that's going to be the main attraction, because of course we are going to focus on something that actually matters. Unlike James Lindsay, we are going to be focusing on something that matters. Unlike Moms for Liberty, we are going to be focusing on something that matters, which is real things affecting real kids in the real world today. But before we get into that, I have some news. Because I am just going to come out and say it. There's no reason for me to hide it anymore. It's something that I've been dying to say for a really long effing time, which is this. I am a significantly better teacher for normal people about what is going on in the left in this country than James Lindsay is, and I am tired of pretending that I'm not. You see, I'm very used to James Lindsay's audience finding their way to my channel, finding their way to my content. It makes sense, right? We're both covering the left in some way. I've always thought that what he and I were doing were very different things, in terms of he focuses on the academic literature that I don't want to read. And so I was more than happy for him to do his academic literature thing. I think he's really talented. I think he's really smart, a certified genius. I really was not trying to infringe on his turf when I started watching woke trainings. Wouldn't you know it, I'm an organizational psychologist. I've done corporate training in the real world. I've built corporate training in the real world. And I made the crazy choice 3 years ago to just start watching corporate diversity trainings on my channel and break them down and reverse engineer what the left was doing. I tried to reverse engineer just how the left was showing up in the world. And it started with corporate diversity training. That was my happy place. That was a world that I knew. That was a world that I understood. I was literally speaking at the biggest HR conferences of the world when they were taken over by woke nonsense and diversity and inclusion training around about 2018, which is when it happened. I know that because that's when the exhibit halls at the biggest HR conferences in the world suddenly were half filled with diversity and inclusion vendors. So I kind of stuck in my lane. I was like, I'm going to do corporate diversity training. I'm going to show people what this is. I'm going to break it down, all that stuff. Well, we moved from corporate diversity training into things going on in the classrooms, into things going on in the schools, and analyzing social organizations and social systems is something that I'm very used to because, again, I'm an organizational psychologist by training. And so going in and analyzing how a school is functioning is actually no different than going in and organizing how a corporation is functioning, and figuring out and reverse engineering why things are happening the way they are and what to do to fix them. That is what I spent years of my life doing. So we went from the corporate diversity training into the schools. And then about a year and a half ago, we stumbled upon the hardcore socialists. And the socialism thing was just supposed to be a gag. It was supposed to be a fun kind of jaunt for a weekend. But we found out when we started watching socialism content that, oh my God, they're using the same effing language that we're seeing show up in the schools, that we're seeing show up in the diversity training, that we're seeing shown up in the college classes. And then we reverse engineered that if we go back 5, 6, 7 years into hardcore socialist training, those were the talking points of the Democratic Party in 2021, 22. So we started to be able to reverse engineer the origin point. Not just generalized, not just theoretical, not just based on academic papers. We started figuring out which activist organizations and which specific activists by name from the radical revolutionary far left, the Marxist left, we started figuring out who's pushing critical race theory into schools, who's pushing gender ideology into schools, who's making attacks on parental rights, who's doing what is the origin point, the activism origin point, not the philosophical origin point, for everything showing up in the world today. And I started amassing a library of clips. And we started watching. I have literally sat through, I know, like, I say this all the time, but really think about this. I have sat through thousands of hours of these trainings, thousands of hours of them. Many members of my community have sat through a lot of those trainings right alongside with me. That wasn't the place I thought I was going to end up when this started, but that's what happened. And I never meant to infringe or encroach on James Lindsay's territory, but the reality is this. Over the years, person after person after person after person after person after person has asked me, "Carlin, when are you going to collaborate with James Lindsay?" And it's not that I hadn't had the idea to at some point. Every once in a while, like like people seem to have the idea that James Lindsay and I were friends. James Lindsay and I were never friends. Occasionally, for a long ass time throughout half of 2020 and like pretty much throughout the entirety of 2021, James Lindsay, Chris Rufo, Corey DeAngelis, and I were all in like a private messaging group where we were sharing information with each other and we were like retweeting each other's stuff and supporting each other. And that was actually really great. Honestly, I learned a lot from them. I really, really did. And so there was some sort of collaborative effort happening in which we were all kind of like sharing each other's stuff and like sharing it out and stuff like that. But at some point, the group just kind of died. Like people just stopped posting to it. Now, you would think in this space that there are so few people doing activism, there are so few people teaching, that the people who are doing it would communicate and work together. But that's not what happens. In 2021, it was. But let me tell you what. From 2022 until now, and this is not just true of James Lindsay, I would say this is true of everyone. The so-called anti-woke activism space has become obsessively competitive with each other. Now, I personally never viewed it as a competition because I actually don't believe in competition. I believe there should be as many teachers as possible and people should gravitate to whoever they want to learn from. I really do believe that. I'm not the best teacher for everyone. I know that. I think I'm a better teacher than James Lindsay. That's for goddamn sure. But I'm not the best teacher for everyone. He's not the best teacher for everyone. There should be dozens, if not hundreds of people teaching this stuff, which is what I've tried to develop in my community. One of the reasons that I drill people so much in my community about the same information over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is to make sure that you all understand it so that you can go to your friends, your community, your family, and you can teach it. Because I don't want to be the only person teaching this. I want all of you to be able to teach it as well. So I never viewed this as a competition, but I think I'm pretty much the only one that hasn't viewed it as a competition. Like, silly me. I don't think that defeating a goddamn cultural revolution should be a competition for who gets the biggest audience and the most clouds and the most retweets, bro, and the most status. But sadly, I'm the only one that feels that way. And over the last year, every single time someone's asked me, "Carlin, when are you collaborating with James Lindsay? When are you collaborating with James Lindsay?" I've brushed it off. I've said, "Oh yeah, we're just doing our own things, like whatever." But the reality is this. I have known for a long ass time that I would never collaborate with James Lindsay. I've known that. And it's not because I haven't always supported what he was doing. It's not because I haven't always spoken highly of his work. It's not because our work doesn't complement each other, because in an ideal world, in a perfect world, in a world where James Lindsay is actually serious about what he's doing, we would be collaborating. Because we're the two sides of the puzzle. There's no one else doing what James Lindsay's doing. There's also no one else doing what I'm doing. And what he and I are doing are not the same thing. What he and I are doing are complementary. They should work together. In a world where James Lindsay removed his head from his ass and actually worked collaboratively, it would actually be a beautiful thing to see these two approaches come together. And it was something I was always open to, but I knew would never happen. Not because of me, but because of James Lindsay. Because at some point, James Lindsay stopped supporting me at all. Now, he didn't always I want to be very clear about this. When I say support, what I mean is a click of a button to retweet something. That's what I mean. I don't mean time, I don't mean energy, I don't mean resources, I don't mean anything like that. What I mean is the click of a button to retweet something. In the past year, James Lindsay has retweeted me twice. The first time was for autistic sex education. He did share that, and I thought that was great, and I was grateful for it. The second time he retweeted me was when I caught the president of the American Library Association saying that libraries should be sites of socialist organizing at the 2023 Socialism Conference, which I was the only one who got that. Ain't no one else covering that. That came from me. There's been nothing else. And again, I was like, fine, James, you don't want to do this. You don't, and I never told anyone about this. I was kind of like, maybe I told like a couple people like here and there behind the scenes. I'm like, well, James Lindsay's not serious about this anymore. And then I noticed James Lindsay really getting very close to Moms for Liberty. And I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. But again, I don't say anything publicly because for people that I think are valuable people in this fight, I'm like, you know what? If you're not coming at me, I'm not going to say anything about you. I might disagree with you, man. And by the way, we actually should be able to disagree. In a functional adult relationship, we should be able to have these discussions. If James Lindsay was acting with intellectual integrity, he would be having these discussions. Sadly, he's not. I would match my knowledge against anyone. I would match the receipts I have about what's going on the left against anyone. You guys saw me directly last week on Thursday when Michael Rechtenwald was on my channel. Michael Rechtenwald, former Marxist, has written like 8,000 books about this, knows this topic better than anyone. I said to Michael Rechtenwald, here is what I'm teaching. Am I right about this or am I wrong? I am willing to put my ideas out there and say, critique me, bro. Critique me. Tell me I'm wrong. Show me receipts that I'm wrong. Because if I'm wrong, I want to fucking know it so I can adjust it. What did Michael Rechtenwald say last week? He said I was right about every single thing I was teaching, and he was actually really impressed with the way I broke down the language. And that was great. That was awesome. That was really good validation. Indeed we have, Naruto. Indeed we have. So you would think someone acting with intellectual integrity would be able to have those discussions, and you would think that someone acting with intellectual integrity would want to have those conversations so that we can all come to a higher understanding of what is going on. But James Lindsay doesn't want to do that. because today, James Lindsay blocked me on Twitter. And the crime that I committed was that I questioned the effectiveness of Moms for Liberty. Well, that wasn't the only crime I committed. And I'll show you more receipts on that in a second. But this is what did it. James tweeted this morning, and I'm sorry, I don't have his tweet. He's blocked me on Twitter. However, will I see James Lindsay's tweets? Oh, I have 8,000 sock accounts. Well, you'll just have to trust me, or you can go back and see it on Twitter yourself if you don't. Effectively, what happened is James Lindsay is white knighting for Moms for Liberty because, as I covered the other day, Laura Loomer is dropping receipts on who the founders of Moms for Liberty are and the corruption in that organization. And I've been calling out the corruption in Moms for Liberty for at least a year and a half. I have a 100% correct rate, a 100% accuracy rate when I call out an organization for being a corrupt, grifting organization. And Laura Loomer has now proven that I was right about Moms for Liberty from the very effing beginning. That's not to say normal Moms for Liberty members. If you're a Moms for Liberty member and you're like in a local chapter, I'm not talking about you. I am talking about the national organization. I have no issues with normal Moms for Liberty people. I have no issues. These are moms that are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to make change. I don't think their tactics are effective, but I have no issues with them personally. I think anyone trying to make change is good. I have issue with the national organization that has completely effed up any hope of actually making a cohesive stance against what the left is doing in the schools. And I've talked about this on numerous occasions. I think the book banning bullshit has been the wrong strategy from the very beginning. I called it out the minute that it started. I said, this is not going to work. This is going to backfire for reason X, Y, B, and Z. You can go back and watch my videos on it. You can read the articles I've written about it. Like I have an article on my Substack saying, can we stop the book banning stuff now? Can we stop? Because this is not going to go anywhere. Called it out from the very beginning. In November, we saw the ramifications of Moms for Liberty's strategy, which is that almost every single Moms for Liberty candidate lost their elections for school board. That's reality. That is not in dispute. The left has so effectively weaponized what Moms for Liberty is doing against them, which I said was going to happen from the very beginning. The left has so effectively weaponized Moms for Liberty's own strategies against them that Moms for Liberty is now completely incapable of getting anyone elected to school board, which was supposed to be their only job. They had one job. And because of their ineffective strategies that they didn't think through, because they were going for social media clout instead of practical reality. By the way, Moms for Liberty strategies are going to get struck down in the courts. It's already started. Moms for Liberty strategies are already starting to get struck down in the courts at the state level. They're going to get struck down at the federal level. And then you've got tens of millions of dollars wasted and complete brand suicide over strategies that never had any hope of being effective in the first place. But Moms for Liberty is cutting James Lindsay some fat checks to shill for them. And they have been for a while. And so when you see James Lindsay running cover and white knighting for Moms for Liberty, saying things like, the left wouldn't be so angry at Moms for Liberty if Moms for Liberty weren't effective, which he literally did say. That was what I was responding to this morning. I responded, and I knew exactly what was going to happen when I tweeted this. I knew he was going to block me. When James Lindsay says, The left only hates Moms for Liberty because Moms for Liberty was so effective. I responded, they were incredibly effective when they lost almost every single election in November. They're incredibly effective at keeping people in a constant game of whack-a-mole with the book bans that they can never win and distract from how the left is really indoctrinating kids in school. Like, congratulations, Moms for Liberty. You're so effective that you have lost almost, let me be more intellectually honest than James Lindsay. You're so effective, Moms for Liberty, that you lost almost every single election in November. And you're so effective that your efforts have completely distracted from what is actually going on in the schools and have kept you in a constant game of whack-a-mole that you will never, ever, ever win. Very, very effective. The reality is, and I know this because unlike James Lindsay, I have gone undercover at socialist events, at their trainings. I've been in the rooms with the door closed where they're talking about this. The left loves Moms for Liberty. They love them. They talk about them all the time. They have entire discussions about how to use what Moms for Liberty is doing against the right to win elections. That is the reality. And I say this publicly, which makes me blacklisted by Moms for Liberty, which is a badge I'll wear as a badge of honor. Because I'm right. Because I have been in the rooms that James Lindsay won't go into. I've been in the rooms that Billboard Chris won't go into. I've been in the rooms that no one at the Daily Wire will go into. I've been in the rooms that Chris Rufo won't even damn well go into, and he'll go into some more rooms than most, but he's not in these rooms. I've been in the rooms that Andy No hasn't been in. I've heard what they're saying. I know what their plans are. And if that wasn't enough, we have sat here almost every single day for years, watching them say it in videos they post on the internet, because they don't hide what they're doing. They're a little bit more overt when they're in real life and they've got the door closed and they think everyone's on their team, but they don't really hide what they're doing in their trainings either. We've all heard this. And we all know that they have been using Moms for Liberty's own strategies against the conservative right for a really long time. Let me take a couple super chats. Rottweiler said, it's sad and stupid. So long as he's in the pocket of Moms for Liberty, he won't point out stuff that would make his conservative audience and sponsors walk away, like when he spoke against Christian nationalism. That's exactly right. And I'm going to prove that to you, Rottweiler. I'm going to prove that to you because this isn't the only reason James Lindsay blocked me. I'm going to show you receipts on that in a sec. Moms for Liberty tweeted they're teaching kids to hate each other when in reality, schools are teaching solidarity. Tate, I thought this was a really good point you made on Twitter. And this is also proof that Moms for Liberty has no effing clue what's going on. Tate is correct. The schools are not teaching kids to hate each other. When you go to socialist conferences, when you go to far left events, they're not teaching you to hate each other. They're teaching you to take care of each other. They're teaching you to look out for each other. They're actually really nice. Everyone's really nice to each other. Everyone does it is actually is true. It is nicer to go to a socialist event than it is to go to CPAC. I'll tell you that right now. I've been to them. I know. And if you don't believe me, then go for yourself and find out, because everyone's going to be really nice to you. Everyone's going to take care of you. They're going to make sure you have what you need. Everyone's going to be really considerate. You're going to get a chance to talk and share your ideas. No one's going to poo-poo anything you say. They're actually really nice to you when they think you're part of their team. And so, yeah, in schools, they're teaching that to kids. And people might not want to hear that. But the fact of the matter is that the left are collectivists. They're collectivists. For all their faults, and they have many, they actually are really good at getting people to work together. Much better than the right. significantly better than the right on almost every possible level. But that's not the only reason James Lindsay blocked me. You see, last night, I started quote tweeting James Lindsay and I started correcting the language that he's using. And I knew he wouldn't like this either. Because we know the language of the left. My audience knows the language of the left. James Lindsay is on Twitter using conservative talking points and pretending that it's the language of the left. So when James Lindsay tweeted last night, today in Western Marxism, the enemy of the people is Western civilization and its hegemony, including individual liberties and market economies. James, What do you think James means when he says the enemy of the people is Western civilization, which is not their enemy? What do you think he means when he says including individual liberties and market economies? What does that sound like to you? Individual liberties and market economies. What does James Lindsay mean by that? Oh, does he mean capitalism? He means capitalism. Could he mean capitalism? Maybe he means capitalism. Perhaps it's capitalism. Maybe capitalism. I would say it's probably capitalism. Maybe capitalism. Oh, maybe some private property as well, which is, of course, the left's definition of capitalism. Capitalism and private property. Could that be what he's saying? Why won't James Lindsay use the term capitalism? It's not that he doesn't know it. It's not that James Lindsay doesn't understand that capitalism and private property, which is the left's definition of capitalism, is what the real enemy of the left is. It's not that he doesn't know it. It's not that he doesn't understand it, but he refuses to use the terms capitalism and private property. Why? Rottweiler, exactly. Because capitalism doesn't suit the white Western civilization conservative talking point. Because when conservatives say Western civilization, they don't mean capitalism. They don't mean private property. They don't mean the nuclear family. They don't mean the gender binary. They don't mean any of that. They mean white people. That's what conservatives mean when they say Western civilization. Using the term Western civilization was invented by the white identitarians, and I tracked those people back in 2021. You can go back and look at my work on it. This came from the far, far right, where the far, far right started to understand that they couldn't continue to call out how white people were poor, abused victims of the world. And so they started replacing white people with Western civilization. If you go into white identitarian groups, they call white people Western kind. This came from white identitarians. When conservatives use the term Western civilization, they mean white people, and James Lindsay knows it, which is why he uses it as well. So I responded to him and I retweeted him, which you can't see now because he's blocked me. So I had to show it separate. And I said the enemy of the people is capitalism, which they define as private property. Individual liberties are labeled as private property, which we have a different video saying, and are therefore capitalism must be abolished. And then I pasted the video from the 6-hour socialism conference that we watched a couple weeks ago, where they literally say this. It's not in dispute. You don't need to take my word for it. You never need to take my word for anything, because for every single thing that I say about the left, I will provide you with a video showing them saying that thing from their trainings. James Lindsay can't do that, because what James Lindsay has is mountains and mountains and mountains of academic papers. And again, no shade on that. What he has done is near impossible, and I have a great deal of respect for it. But the fact of the matter is that I can answer for everything that the left is doing with a video clip of the left saying that they're doing it, and James Lindsay cannot, and he cannot compete with that, and he damn well knows it. James Lindsay has always known that he cannot discuss these issues with me. He cannot debate me, because for every point that I make, not only am I 100% correct in what I'm doing, I have video evidence to back up every single thing that I say, and you don't need to read a goddamn academic paper in order to understand it, because you hear them say it on video. We watch it all the time. We're going to be watching it today. So this is why James Lindsay was never going to have a conversation with me, guys. He was never going to have a discussion about our disagreements. He was never going to debate me, bro, because he knows that he can't. Because he knows that I have video evidence for every single point that I make, and there ain't no talking around it. James Lindsay also tweeted yesterday, you know, the salacious things they're saying about Moms for Liberty today are true, because if they were, the left wouldn't be smearing them. They'd be writing children's books about how great it is and putting them in school libraries. Well, I thought this was funny for a couple of reasons. Number one, because Laura Loomer is not on the left. Laura Loomer's on the right. But the other reason I thought that this tweet was questionable is that the left is writing children's books, which we've covered on my channel. The left is writing children's books. This is part of why the book banning bullshit was never going to work in the first place. Because unlike the conservative right, the socialist left has at least half a dozen big book publishers and more independent ones after that. Book publishing is how the socialist left not only makes its money, but disseminates all their ideas. They have entire publishing houses, dozens of them. And for every single book that Moms for Liberty gets banned from your kid's school library, the left publishes 5 more. And then they put those books in the library to replace the one that you just spent a year and a half getting banned. So there is no possible way that the right and Moms for Liberty can ever win the book banning game. It is impossible, because it is a game of whack-a-mole. You get one, they replace it with 5 more. You get one of those 5, they replace it with more. And you are in a constant state of chasing your tail that you will never win, because you can get as many, you can high-five yourself and say, look at all these books that we got banned, and the left is going to publish more and more and more and more and more, and you are not going to know what the names of those are until the next round of book banning, and then you're spending all your time on that, none of your time on anything else. It is a waste of energy, it is a waste of resources, and it is not even how the left is indoctrinating your kids in the first place. So I quote tweeted that, and I said, well, James, the left is writing books and is getting them in school libraries. Who do you think said libraries should be sites of socialist organizing? The head librarian in the country. And then I put a book of the children's book table that I took at the socialism conference. They had, and I actually have a better picture than this, I need to find it somewhere. At the socialism conference, they had a giant table of books for kids. They also had games for kids, by the way. They had games too. I have another picture of that. I think I showed it on a stream a while ago. They have books for kids. They've got board games for kids. They've got childcare programs for kids. They've got everything set up to indoctrinate kids. So why is James Lindsay saying the only reason that the left is going after Moms for Liberty is because they're not writing children's books and getting them in school libraries? Provably false, James. Provably false. So why is he lying to his audience? Why is he lying to his audience when there's evidence available to him right now that contradicts what he said? Oh, because he's getting a fat paycheck from Moms for Liberty to do so. And this is the last one. James tweeted, Israel is code for Western. Huh. Israel's code for something, James, but it's not code for Western. Israel is code for Western, a British-American project to bring Western hegemony to the Middle East. Ireland is Western and is therefore colonizing the millions of people who immigrated there in the last few years. America is Western and must be dismantled. Well, it's not Western, James. It's not Western. It's capitalism. Israel and the Jews are code for capitalism, and we know that because there are like half a dozen presentations at the very top of Haymarket Books' YouTube channel right effing now that are recent live streams about the Israel-Palestine conflict, where you can hear the hardcore socialist activists literally say that Israel and the Jews, the Zionists, because they can't call them the Jews, they have to call them the Zionists because it's more slightly more PC. They are code for for capitalism, not for Western. They say it themselves. They are code for capitalism because Marx and Engels were anti-Semitic AF. They see the decolonization of Palestine, the revolution in Palestine, as removing the oppressive force of capitalism. We know because we watched it on this channel. We watched a whole presentation specifically about the term decolonization where they said it. The only people who care about Western values, Western civilization, are conservatives, because they refuse to acknowledge that this is not about race. And Western is their way of saying white people. And James Lindsay knows this because James Lindsay knows about the paper Whiteness is Property by Cheryl Harris in 1993. James Lindsay has seen the video of Cheryl Harris making a speech at UCLA Law School in 2014. I know because Tayton tagged him with it on Twitter, where Cheryl Harris, the author of the paper Whiteness is Property, literally says you do not have to have white skin to engage in whiteness. That Black people can engage in whiteness too. Because whiteness is about who controls the power structure, and it is about capitalism, and you cannot fight against whiteness without fighting against capitalism too. That is from Cheryl Harris herself. So don't tell me that James Lindsay doesn't fucking know that, because he does. He does. So, while I have great respect for all that James Lindsay has done, while I will always value the inspiration that he gave to me when I first started doing this, it is time to admit that James Lindsay is nothing more than a paid shill for Moms for Liberty, and he's probably doing this because he knows we're going to lose, and he might as well cash in as we are sliding into the Marxist utopia. James Lindsay is a paid shill to advance the talking points and the narrative that Moms for Liberty wants to advance. And I'm sorry, if you don't take everything he says from now on with a grain of salt and demand receipts and align that with what you see the far left saying in the real world, I don't know what to tell you, man. Because James Lindsay is lying to his audience. And we know that. And people who watch my content regularly know that, because basically all we do on this channel is watch videos of the far left in their own words, in their own language, speaking for themselves. It's not coming from me. And I'm not sitting here going, trust me, bro, pinky swear, I promise. I'm not pontificating aimlessly about this stuff. I have receipts for every single thing that I say, because I don't want you to ever have to take my word for it. I want you to see for yourself. James Lindsay can't do that, and that is why he sold out. And that is why I will absolutely say I am a better teacher than James Lindsay about what the left is doing in this country, and I am tired of pretending that I am not. My audience is more informed than James Lindsay's audience. My audience has a more nuanced understanding than James Lindsay's audience. I have more receipts than James Lindsay does. My receipts are more accessible than anything James Lindsay has. And I make sure you guys see everything for yourself and you decide for yourself. I never tell you what to think. I say, here is the video. Watch and see what they say. My audience is equipped to go out and teach other people what is going on. James Lindsay's audience is equipped to read and cry on Twitter about groomer, 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 Gnostic, 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 groomer, 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 Gnostic, Gnostic, Gnostic. That's all they fucking do. I would be embarrassed if my audience behaved the way that James Lindsay's audience does. Because James Lindsay's audience does not understand the content that they believe that they do, because James Lindsay has been an ineffective teacher. That's all I really have to say. That's all I really have to say about that. It's sad. There was once a time when I really believed in him. Maybe there was once a time when it was true. But life goes on. You move on. And that's all we can really do, guys. That's all we can really do. Tayton says, Billboard Chris, trans isn't a real thing. Also, Chris listened to this detransition or detransit. Yeah, according to Billboard Chris, who, by the way, guys, if you don't understand that Billboard Chris is a paid shill, I don't know what to tell you. He's absolutely a paid shill. 100%. Why the fuck is Billboard Chris in the United States? Billboard Chris is Canadian. Why the fuck is Billboard Chris doing activism in the United States? Why isn't Billboard Chris staying in Canada to do activism in Canada? He's here because he's a paid shill to be here. That's why. And he will contradict himself within the same sentence and say, trans people aren't a real thing, but oh wait, detransitioners are real. Doesn't make sense. But it doesn't have to make sense when you're paid big bucks by conservatives to shill their goddamn narrative. And that's why, guys, that's why I've always told you, I will never work with any of these organizations. I will never be a paid shill for any of these organizations. It's not that I haven't had the opportunity to do so. It's that I have no interest in doing so, because the minute that you start working with one of these conservative, shill, grifting, fucking astroturfed organizations, you lose your ability to tell the truth. I have maintained from the beginning that either I will be completely grassroots funded by you, or I won't do this anymore. Because as long as I am completely grassroots funded by you, my only obligation is to tell you the truth. You pay me to tell you the truth. You pay me to show you the receipts so you can decide for yourself what you're comfortable with. I will never tell you what to think about something. I will simply show you what's going on. I will help you understand the language, and then you decide. And so for that reason, if you want to support the work I'm doing, you can head over to my Substack, where I will never goddamn sell out, and sign up for $8 a month or $80 a year. And that keeps me in business. I'm trying to get 100 new subscriptions, our paid subscribers, before the end of the year to round things out. What that does is it allows me to go into events. It allows me to do undercover journalism, investigative reporting. It allows me the time to be able to break this stuff down for you guys. And tomorrow, we've got a big deal coming this week. Because guess what, guys? Moms for Liberty is never going to show you what I show you about what's going on in the teacher trainings. James Lindsay is never going to show you what I show you about what's going on in the teacher trainings. We are going to spend the next 3 days in a woke teacher training where I am going to show you explicitly what teachers are learning in their professional development programs, because that is the material that will show up in your kids' school. This is a supporter-only exclusive. I will not be doing regular streams for the rest of the week, and we will be spending the next 3 days going inside a live woke teacher training. This is the last chance that you have to sign up. Because later tonight, after this stream, I am going to be sending out information about tomorrow for the event. Now, you can still sign up tomorrow, I guess. It's just going to be behind the paywall on the Substack. But I'm going to be sending out the schedule for day 1, and I'm going to tell you what conference we're infiltrating. I've kept this pretty close to the chest. Some members of my community know what we're doing. But today, later tonight, I'm going to be sending out the day 1 schedule so that you can see exactly what conference we're going into and the names of the sessions. And I'm just going to tell you right now, there's one with kink in it. There's one about non-binary kids in it. There's one about rough sex. No joke. There's one about, do parents even need parental rights? There may even be a repeat of autistic sex education, because we're going inside a very, very sexy teacher training conference for the next 3 days, and I'm going to show you what's going on. And we have multiple backups, so even if they get my account, I've got backups, baby. We've got this one locked. There ain't no way they're getting out of this one. So that's what we're going to spend the next 3 days doing. I am the only one on the internet doing this. I'm tired of pretending I'm not. And you can join me by heading over to the Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and signing up for $8 a month or $80 a year. I do appreciate it. Other ways to support the work I'm doing are by heading over to the Unwoke Art Store. That is unwokeart.com. And I do daily sales of different merch that I'm to gear up for the holidays. We've got a classic design on sale today. I'm a little worried about my Rumble stream. Is my Rumble stream working? I don't know. Anyway, we have got a classic design on sale today in the Unwoke Art Store, which is the Be Bourgeois design. The Fox, one of the classics. The purple version of this looks so, so, so cool. Check that out. I've added some new products, including this awesome tumbler. We've also got mugs. We've got this cool bag. Of course, the bourgeois is the opposite of what the woke left want us to be. It's the opposite. Bourgeois means capitalism, guys. James Lindsay isn't going to tell you that bourgeois means capitalism, but I'm going to tell you that bourgeois means capitalism. When you're a member of the bourgeois, you are the private property owners. You are the ones that own the power structure. And if I have to choose between the left owning the power structure and me owning the power structure, or you guys owning the power structure, I'm going to choose us. I'm going to choose us every single day of the week. So be bourgeois, get your stuff in the Unwoke Art merch store. That's going to be up until midnight tonight, when we will switch over to our next design tomorrow. And tomorrow's going to be all about capitalism. It's going to be great. Last thing I want to say is, people have been wondering if Nothing Remotely Controversial is back tonight, and yes, it is. We will be doing Nothing Remotely Controversial tonight at 9:30, so you can join us for that. Joshua and I are back. It was my fault we didn't do last week. It was not Joshua's fault. It was my fault. But we're back tonight because, we had to come back sooner or later. So that's what's going on there. All right, guys, with that preamble out of the way, only an hour of me yelling on the internet. Let's pick up part 2. Now, we are picking up from yesterday's stream. We are watching a student panel about the intersection of racial justice in sex education. You guys know that I love nothing more than when socialists groom children on the internet. I got to stop using the term groomer. The reason I have to stop using the term groomer is James Lindsay overused it so effing much that it lost all meaning. James Lindsay's audience called everyone a groomer that disagreed with them, so it lost all its goddamn meaning. Anyway, we are watching a panel of children talk about woke stuff. As a reminder, we do not make fun of children. We do not make fun of children, okay? The children in this panel are victims of this ideology. We do not make fun of them. This is a public chat, guys, okay? So if anyone makes fun of them, I'm going to be giving you a timeout. If you continue to make fun of them, I'm going to ban you, because we want to be better than this. And these children are in a cult, and they listen to the people they trusted to teach them, and that's the way it goes. So no making fun of kids. You can comment on what they're saying, but you can't make fun of them. Please don't violate that rule. It's one of the most sacred rules on the channel. All right, guys, let's continue with this presentation.
Advocates for Youth. Would you like to share about a project that you've worked on specifically related to racial justice and sex education? Tell the folks why you thought it was important.
Hi, everyone. So I have not worked on a project for raising awareness around racial justice and sex education. However, I am interested in working on a project to raise awareness, because I have personally seen how the lack of proper education disproportionately affects young people of color. And I definitely feel raising awareness will help strengthen the racial justice cause.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do at Advocates?
So this is something that I've started. This is a new initiative, so I haven't yet been able to participate in much work.
Awesome. Thank you. And Brienne, you are also a youth advocate with Advocates for Youth, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. You want to tell us a little bit about the work and why you think it's important?
Yes, I think it's important about, racial justice and sex education with youth. I haven't yet started working as much as I like to, but I know that I did do a few projects with other organizations in my college campus. Last semester, we did a project called What Sex Got to Do with It. And it was basically create a safe space for Black women to come in and just talk about their sexual experiences and how to have safe sex, what consent is, and just basically talking about your sexual health. It was a really great event.
Awesome. Thanks, Brienne. The next question I'm just going to put out there, and anybody who wants to chime in with a response, feel free to unmute. And the question really is, what do you think is gained or missed by having or not having racial justice as part of the sex education curriculum? So what do you think young people gain from that or miss from that if they don't have it? Lanaya?
Yes. I believe having racial justice as part of the sex education curriculum allows young people of color to receive a sex education that is relevant to them. Including racial justice also allows for young people of color to recognize how socioeconomic, educational, criminal justice, and health disparities in correlation to American history affect access to resources. As well as teaching the history makes it possible for young people to make decisions based on full factual information that is presented without personal opinion or prejudice.
So important. And many of those things were discussed in the reports that were just presented on from Sikis, Wakshin, and Fact Forward. So thank you.
Yes.
How about others?
I'd love to add, I believe that it definitely takes away from the relatability. I found a lot of times in my sex education experiences throughout high school specifically, that, I wouldn't really be able to see myself within a lot of the conversations that were happening. I didn't feel like I was being represented in any way. And I think in inviting a discussion about racial justice and how that is very relevant to sex education, I think then that allows for a lot more groups of young people to be able to see themselves within that work. I think that intersectionality is very important.
I want to emphasize here. So, does anyone notice anything about the language of the kids when they say, "What do you think about incorporating racial justice into sex education?" Is there anything you notice about the language that these are kids? Is there anything that you notice about the language that these kids are using? Let me know in the chat. I was going to check in. I think something. Oh no, Rumble does seem to be working. So Rumble chat, I can see you guys as well. Thank you for watching on Rumble. Do you guys notice anything about the language? They sound mesmerized. I agree, Sin. They know socialist language. I agree. Their talking points sound rehearsed. They sound identical to socialist adults. They sound like they're reading their answers. They have socialist language. It sounds scripted. They're just parroting what the adults told them. The language is programmed by adults. They're parroting what the adult. That's exactly right, guys. The language is mechanical. They're repeating what they hear. The kids are repeating the talking points that the adults have given them. Kids don't learn to talk this way unless they've heard a lot of adults talking that way. Yeah, Beth, we knew what you meant. We can read through typos. 20 years ago, kids in high school didn't talk this way. Who was in high school 20 years ago? Okay, I was almost in high school 20 years ago. I graduated in 99. 20 years ago, kids did not talk this way. Why didn't kids talk this way? Because they had not learned in school to talk this way. This comes out of equity programming in schools that started really, I mean, it started before then, but really was pretty solidified around 2009. 2009 is when they really started pushing this stuff in schools nationwide. So if you were in school before then, you didn't learn how to talk like this. It wasn't because of Obama. Nope, 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 no, 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 no. No. Conservative talking point, not reality. They spent 70 years taking over the schools before Obama was ever elected president. This was happening before Obama. It just got solidified in like 2009, 2010. So that's why you hear them talking like this, because this is language that they learned in school.
And so, certain circumstances don't necessarily apply to everyone and things like that. And so, yeah, I think it makes everything more inclusive. I feel like when we kind of discuss this history that's very important and relevant to a lot of practices within sex education that we can see today.
Thanks, Sabrina. And Brianne, I saw you had unmuted as well.
Yes, I think that having racial justice as a part of a sex education curriculum will allow people of color to be heard and understood and break certain racial stereotypes associated with teen pregnancy,
She's
sexually
reading on a
transmitted
script.
infections,
She's reading a
and other things
script.
like that. I also think it will also help to create a judgment-free zone and allow students
Do you see how she's looking over to the side? She's reading a script.
to be open throughout the curriculum and ask for help and ask more questions and not be as scared because they're afraid that they're going to be judged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Sophia.
I think racial justice in sex education can really help understand current events for like people like my age, because there's a lot of things that we hear about, like there's like distrust in healthcare. There's like disparities in things like maternal health and stuff, and like a lot of times when we see those things, we don't, like, some people who like aren't aware of like racial justice and stuff and how it connects with sex education, they might see things like that and be like, oh, like that's just that's just how it is. But if we really like learn about it, and it can help us understand that these are like systemic and they have like really deep roots. Yeah. But also what Lanai was saying about seeing intersection, I think I'm personally also very passionate about environmental justice and like seeing how like all of these things that we learn about in school and stuff all connect to sex education. I think that would be really impactful.
What? Seeing how all the things we learn in school also connect through sex education? Okay, that's weird. I don't know what she means by that quite. Let me
Anyone
know
else want to chime in?
Sorry, Chad. Sorry. My bad.
Yes, Serena.
Yeah, I think one aspect of like sex education in our school that's really lacking is like in racial justice is that it allows peers to kind of like people to kind of like see eye to eye with their peers and be able to treat others with more empathy and respect. And I think understanding racial issues and like the scope of like sexuality is like a really big part of that we're missing, because I think I forgot who, but someone brought up like dismantling stereotypes earlier, but like knowing about like the origins of those stereotypes or how they're like perpetuated in media or like society would really allow youth to be able to kind of see past them or understand the roots, and it would be like beneficial overall.
Absolutely. So we've got a question that came in through the Q&A from our viewers. So I'm going to share that and see anybody who wants to chime in. How have your peers, your family, and your community responded to you working in sexuality education? As someone touched on earlier, communities of color might be hesitant to do these types of conversations and work. So what's been the reaction to folks in your lives?
I can answer first. I know for a fact, like I had a lot of friends whose parents didn't really kind of talk to them or didn't have the proper education in terms of sexual education. So their reactions were a lot like beneficial. Like they were really good to have at least a friend who knows like what the different STDs are, like where can you go to get birth control or where can you go to get tested for anything that you needed to get tested for. And they were actually very grateful to have, my mom is very open to teaching other teens, whose parents are not willing to or don't really know how to speak to their kids about, certain different things. They were very grateful to have, at least an adult that wasn't in their circle or wasn't a teacher or anybody that, they were related to, that can go and speak to them and have them educated on certain things that they might have lacked or they might have had questions for a really long time.
Thanks, Gabriella. Anyone else want to share how the folks around them responded to you doing this type of work? Yeah, Sophia.
My grandmother is she's like a Latina immigrant from Ecuador, and she faced a lot of like discrimination and stuff and issues like relating to like sexuality and like like stereotyping and stuff like that. And so her finding out about like me doing this work actually made her like proud and like hopeful for and just kind of grateful that the world is moving in a direction where like people who are young are like not having to deal with this as often, or are trying to like make it so that people don't have to deal with this.
That's awesome. And Serena, I saw you had also unmuted.
When I first like told my mom that I was like applying to work for sex, etc., I think her first reaction was like, "Oh, like why would you want to do that? Like that seems so uncomfortable and awkward." And I think my family members also had similar reactions. All of them are Chinese immigrants, so sex has always been like a very taboo sort of topic in our household. I don't think I've ever talked about it with my parents until I started working for sex, etc. But anyway. I think over time they became a lot more receptive to conversations surrounding like sex education, like sexuality, intimacy, all those sorts of things, which like Sophia mentioned, like was a really positive change that I saw like with them. And yeah, I just think that having someone like a young person like have exposure to these kinds of topics can start really positive conversations between them and their family members. And yeah, it was a positive experience overall.
Great. We love to hear that folks who work at Sex Etc. are opening up conversations with their families. That's really awesome to hear. Anyone else want to share how the people around them reacted to them working?
Yeah. Sure. I'd say that the response that I got was actually pretty positive. Overall, I didn't experience much pushback, but it definitely was a sense of awkwardness around kind of explaining what it was that I was going to write about. And I think I found myself, I guess you could say rewording or trying to find other words other than sex education as a way to explain what I was going to be doing or writing about. Even if it was primarily educational. I feel like just growing up a young Black girl, it was just very stigmatized for me to even express any like interest in advocating for these kinds of topics. So yeah, and I did have experiences with a few family members who kind of.
Why is she implying that the job of the sex education class is to teach her to be an advocate for topics? That's not what a sex education class is. Sex education class is to teach you how things work. At least, I mean, maybe I'm old school. I don't know. Like, tell me if I'm wrong. But like, the sex ed I had in school was like, here are the body parts. Here's how they go together. Here is how you put a condom on a banana. Carry around a sack of flour for a week and pretend it's a baby. And think about if you want to do this with a real live baby before you have sex. That was basically what I learned. And somehow I made it all the way through college without getting pregnant. And so it did its job.
I was just like kind of a sense of like, I don't know, not much joy and I guess a little bit of like a fear maybe or uncomfortableness with me kind of like even having these kinds of discussions. Because yeah, I think that just carries over time and time again a lot of times. Yeah, people in my culture and in my community just seem to be fearful that I'll take this education and I don't know, run with it. I don't know. To me, that's a good thing, but
exactly. That's exactly what we want you to do with it.
People are afraid that they're going to take education and run. I shouldn't say that in a mocking voice, but like this idea that kids are learning that the adults in your life are going to be afraid that you're going to take this education on how to be the very best activist you can be and run with it. That's what they're afraid of. And the teacher even says like, yeah, we want you to take this education we're giving you about how to be an activist and run with it. That's what we want.
Yeah, that was my experience.
Thanks for sharing that, Sabrina. So we've just got a few minutes left. So I want to pose one more question out to the group. And that is, what would you want your former health teachers or sex educators or school administrators to know about the importance of including racial justice in sex education? What tips would you share with them on how they could make the classroom or the sex ed experience better?
That's not, I hope people understand that high school students are not equipped to be able to give teachers advice on that comprehensive of a level, because it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? It's like, just because you take a high school sex ed class doesn't mean you understand curriculum development. It doesn't mean you understand that. It doesn't even mean you understand the subject matter, to be quite frank, because a high school class is very, very remedial. And we're talking about when kids are in high school, their brain isn't fully developed yet. They don't have the logic reason function of their brain. And so asking them to like give an analysis that teachers should take seriously about how to better integrate activism into a it's an absurd question. Even the idea that this question is even being posed is an absurd question just from an instructional design standpoint. But here we are.
Brianne.
I'll start. So first, I want to say I know that these conversations can be uncomfortable at times, but I think it is important that educators show that our sex education is as honest about racial justice as it is on any other topic within sex education, because the goal of sex education is being taught that it's important to receive the necessary information to ensure everybody's proper sexual health. So I believe that the sex education lessons aren't supposed to be one size fits all, but instead should be.
She's literally reading off a script. She's reading off a script that someone else gave her. Philosophus says, why are you against the liberation of youth, Carlin? Are you? Yes, I am pro-colonization. I am extremely pro-colonization. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. Kids are being indoctrinated to demand this kind of stuff alongside woke Marxism as entertainment, job prospects, and OFC education by making them believe they are on equal footing to adults. That's exactly right. Like half of the protests that you see in schools where these kids are doing walkout in schools are to make demands of their teachers that are quite frankly ridiculous. But they have to take them seriously. Thank you, Rottweiler. Could they be surveying? What do you mean, Benjamin? Can you give me more? You don't have to send in another super chat, but like, can you give me more about what you mean about like, what do you mean? I'm just not sure I understand. Maybe it's just not clear to me or I missed it, but I don't think they even explained how sex ed and well, no, you're not wrong, Stony Baloney. You are not wrong at all. They never explained how sex ed and racial justice go together. They didn't explain it yesterday. They haven't explained it yet today. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, here is how it works. If someone says sex ed and racial justice go together, everyone else says, yeah, that's a great idea. And then by virtue of asserting the idea, it's accepted as truth, rather than having a discussion of how does it fit together? Why does it fit together? Why? Why are we talking about racial justice in a sex education class? What additional value does it bring? Is that the goal of the sex ed class? No one has that discussion at all. So you're not wrong about that. Let's see. I was just seeing if my new friend Benjamin offered a clarification about what he means. Like surveying for a class assignment, surveying kids and then selling services to schools, surveying, testing the waters. Well, Benjamin, I'll keep an eye out, and if you wanna send a clarification, I will keep an eye out for it. But again, you don't need to send a super chat. I just want to make sure I understand your question.
Be catered to all the races because everybody has different backgrounds and experiences, and it'll help students easily navigate through their sexual health and get the proper help that they need from their teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brianne. How about others? Lanaya.
Well, first off, I want administrators and teachers to know that sometimes the school building is the only place where the students have to turn to for accurate and safe sex education. Many don't have trusted adults or educators to turn to in other settings. So, it's important.
It's funny that she uses the term trusted adult, isn't it? What high school student uses the term trusted adult? Almost like she's reading off a script.
For the school to ensure reliable and relatable sex education to their youth, to really make sure that we can ensure equity in the real world. I feel like sometimes it's taking out of reference, but we all experience the world in different ways. And this really sets it up for us to be, on the same page.
Thanks, Lanaya. So true. Very important.
I feel that educators should not just only talk about, like what are the different, sex educations, or what comes with being abstinence, or what comes with, having sex, but also like where can you go to, get birth control, or where can you go, if, if the place at school, like she also said, is the only place that you have, like, have more than just one multiple, teacher, not just one teacher, because maybe not everyone doesn't go through the same experiences, and not everyone deals with the same kind of issues. So maybe one needs to get a pregnancy test, or one needs to get a birth control, implant, or whatever the case may be. Different resources can help different people for different situations. And as well as racial justice, I feel like it should be, a topic.
Well, Naruto just tagged me on Twitter, and apparently I can still see James Lindsay's tweets in my app for some reason when someone else quote tweets them. James Lindsay has now tweeted, "I don't know what's going on, but I keep getting asked if I'm paid by Moms for Liberty other than some appropriately modest speaking fees for actually speaking for them. I am not. I just support them." Okay, James. All right. All right. Sure, James. I'm sure that's true, James. I'm sure you're definitely not paid for by Moms for Liberty, James. I'm sure that that's true. And you're definitely not lying at all. Let me just see the full tweet. I'm sure that's true, James. Uh-huh. Yeah. I just support the organization and think it's one of the most valuable in the nation. James Lindsay really fucking tweeted that Moms for Liberty is one of the most valuable organizations in the nation, and he's definitely not getting paid by them to say that. Yeah, okay. Sure. We believe you, James. Absolutely.
That should really be touched on, because not everyone receives the same kind of care and it receives the same kind of information, whether that be color, whether it be non-colored people or anything like that. I feel like it should be something that's—
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. If James Lindsay legitimately believes that Moms for Liberty is one of the most valuable organizations in the country, I have severely overestimated James Lindsay's intelligence, because that's fucking retarded. That is retarded. I said it. Hard R motherfuckers. That is retarded. This is a reflection of the fact that James Lindsay has never had a real job in his life and simply has sat in academia and doesn't understand how the real world works. And I'm sorry, if James Lindsay really thinks that Moms for Liberty is the most effective organization in the country, that is not hinged into reality at all. You could talk to any boots on the ground activist and know that. James Lindsay should go spend some time in Texas. James Lindsay should go spend some time in Texas and talk to all the Moms for Liberty people in Texas. Oh, wait, there aren't any. Do you guys know why there are not any Moms for Liberty groups in Texas? Do you guys know why? It's not that there weren't people interested in joining. It's that Moms for Liberty completely abandoned the state of Texas. I'm not making this up. I have multiple members in my community that are in Texas that wanted to be involved in Moms for Liberty, but Moms for Liberty National stopped sending resources to Texas. So there are no Moms for Liberty groups that are doing anything in Texas because the national organization abandoned them. Texas is a purple state. When Texas goes blue, the Republicans are never going to win another election in our lives. So why on earth does James Lindsay believe that Moms for Liberty is the most effective and valuable organization in the country when they have quite literally abandoned Texas? Anyway.
Very common and something that people are open or willing to be open to talk about, because it is a subject that's very important as our generation is coming up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any final thoughts, things that maybe you wanted to make sure you told our audience today but didn't get a chance to? Any final thoughts that anyone wants to share?
I'd love to just say that I really would advise everyone to not be afraid of looking into the, I guess you could say, history and underlying kind of messages behind a lot of these like unfortunate sex education practices or attempts at sex education. Because even in writing the piece that I wrote for Sex Etc. on this topic, when I was doing a lot of the work and like discussing these things with experts and kind of trying to get quotes from people, a lot of things that I ran into that I had an idea about already that ended up having so many layers to them were just so mind-blowing. They made sense of so much of the experiences that I had myself, and just kind of understanding like where that came from, and coming to that realization that so many things in my life will continue to be rooted in race, and will continue to kind of have that foundation of racism. It was a I guess you could say pivotal moment, and I think that everyone kind of should do that work and should do that research and be curious, like continue to ask, like, why is it that when I ask, or why is it that, when my friends act, but when I do, like be curious, ask those questions and look into that stuff. Cause I think you'll have a really, really big realization within yourself.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. And Serena, last one.
Yeah, I was going to say also, like, absolutely do not be afraid to start conversations with students or like young people about like racial justice and sex education, or just like the intersectionality of sexuality and race, because I think a lot of people are willing to talk about it, especially because I feel like young people just do not really get a say in their sex education. So I think it's really important to hear their perspectives as well.
Thanks, Serena. So I just want to share with everybody that Sabrina, Serena, and Sophia has a story that'll be coming out soon on the basics of reproductive justice and sex education.
What?
Their stories are all available on sex.
Reproductive justice means abortion. So what they're telling us is they are pushing like abortion activism in sex education class, which is part of what comprehensive sex education is, by the way. They're teaching your daughters how to be good little abortion activists. Probably your sons too, but definitely your daughters.
etc.org. I want to thank Lanaya, Sophia, Sabrine, Gabriella, Brianne, and Serena for sharing their expertise with us today and taking the time out of their day to talk about this important topic. So thank you. And I will pass it back over to Mariana.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you to the wonderful youth panel. I so appreciate hearing your voices and your experiences and your wisdom, and look forward to seeing more of you.
Oh, now we get to learn how to do it. Okay.
Hearing your names more as we continue to do this work. We're going to transition now to our last presenter for the webinar today, and I'm excited to introduce one of my dear beloved friends, Dr. Nikisha Floyd, who is the Associate Director for the Racial Justice and Sex Education she's the Associate Director, Racial Justice and Sex Education at Advocates for Youth. And Dr. Nikisha is going to focus on the now what. We have heard today from our speakers about why it's important to center racial justice and equity in sex education. Dr. Nikisha is going to share one concrete tool that you can use to put this into practice. She's going to share a soon to be released lesson from Advocate for Youth 3R's curriculum about racism and sexual health, and also provide a preview of the racial justice and sex ed online modules and virtual professional development skills. I'm really excited and always happy to introduce my beloved friend, Dr. Nikisha Floyd.
Thank you so much, Marietta. It's always great to see you. And I am so happy to be here. Again, my name is Nikisha Floyd, and I am with Advocates for Youth. And so many of you may know that Advocates for Youth, the mission of our organization is to partner with youth leaders, adult allies, and youth serving organizations to advocate for policies and champion programs that recognize young people's right to honest sexual health information, the accessibility, confidentiality, and having affordable sexual health services, and also to create resources and opportunities necessary to create sexual health equity for young all youth. And so one way that we are.
Jeremy says, I used to think you focused on drama too much, the typical woman stuff. Then I saw how the drama controls everything. Get used to the socialism, communism, folks. You're amazing at this. Thank you. Well, the thing is, I never focused on drama. I had to engage in drama when sellout fucking wannabe influencers on the internet decided to run a smear campaign against me and to destroy my reputation because they were jealous that my platform grew bigger than theirs did. I've been doing this for 3 goddamn years. And anyone, and I'm not saying that I don't blame you, Jeremy, because I understand why people think this, but the fact is that anyone who thinks this, it was the result of a smear campaign because of fucking ridiculous people on Twitter who are completely incapable of doing anything productive in their lives. They lied to you. They lied to a lot of people. And most people, I shouldn't say most, many people refuse to look and see for themselves. So I'm glad you stuck around, Jeremy, because once you look, you see, don't you? You see.
Are actively working to uplift sexual health equity for all young people is by creating resources and opportunities through the development of classroom lessons and teacher training modules that center the role and impact of race on sex and sexuality. Next slide, please. So the first is the lessons for students that are available. Next slide, please. So last year, Advocates in their 3Rs curriculum, which is free, provided supplemental lessons that focused on racial justice and reproductive justice. And one thing that you may hear often, particularly in the reproductive justice world, is that—
Seriously? Her title is Associate Director of Racial Justice and Education. I know Bob put her YouTube profile in here. Hang on, let me take a look. Let me find where Bob put not the YouTube profile, the LinkedIn profile. Sorry, hang on. Oh, gosh. My YouTube chat is catching up with me over here. Hang on, I need to see this LinkedIn profile. There we go. Well, I'll pull that up in a bit. I'll take your word for a Tolkien fan. Associate Director of Racial Justice and Sex Education. Oh, you're reading it on the main screen. Thank you.
Racial justice is reproductive justice. And so those supplemental lessons that are available, they highlight racial justice and reproductive justice for middle and high school students. And so 5 lessons were
wait, do you notice how they just slid reproductive justice in there again? You're teaching middle schoolers the history of abortion activism? The reproductive justice stuff is actually even more disturbing to me than the racial justice stuff, to be honest with you. You're teaching middle schoolers to be abortion activists? Wow, I need to listen to that again.
Next slide, please. So last year, advocates in their 3 R's curriculum, which is free, provided supplemental lessons that focused on racial justice and reproductive justice. And one thing that you may hear often, particularly in the reproductive justice world, is that racial justice is reproductive justice. And so those—
Pop quiz for the chat. Why does the woke left believe that racial justice is reproductive justice? Pop quiz. Why do they believe that racial justice is reproductive justice? I'm really glad that middle schoolers are learning about their sexual agency as well. Oh no, high schoolers. I'm sorry, high schoolers. Why do these people believe that racial justice is reproductive justice? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with intersectionality. So essentially, and I learned this is not something I think we've gone over before, so I understand why people might not know it. I learned this when I went undercover at the Socialist Reproductive Justice Conference in April, and I went on the How to Have a Bathroom Abortion tour. And on, yes, basically, yes. This is also true, Shannon. Exactly. You guys got it. Because of intersectionality, this is what I learned on the bathroom abortion tour, okay? Intersectionality means that Black women are oppressed and are therefore less likely to have access to resources for abortion. And if they have, and it's better for, they actually said this on the tour, I swear to God, it's better for Black women to have access to at-home bathroom abortion pills, because an at-home bathroom abortion is cheaper than having like the doctor abortion. And so reproductive justice for Black women means that you make sure that Black women have access to at-home bathroom abortion pills so that they can cheaply and easily bleed their children out into the toilet before they go and worship themselves at the self-worship abortion shrine. I'm not making any of that up. That's real. Which is funny, but it shouldn't be funny because we're talking about something serious, but it kind of is a little funny. It is. We have to allow it to be funny, I guess.
Those supplemental lessons that are available, they highlight racial justice and reproductive justice for middle and high school students. And so 5 lessons were released, and the 5 lessons are actually listed there on the slides for you. So the what racism got to do with it is a middle school lesson, and then the impact of racism inequity on sexual health is a high school lesson, and then we have 3 lessons that really focus on reproductive justice. So that's reproductive justice, past, present, and future, sexual agency, and power and privilege. Again, all of those are high school lessons. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about preparing teachers to teach those lessons, that's important as well. I know that in the previous presentation by Dr. Raina Dixon, she talked a lot about educators being prepared to work with young people by doing the work and being reflective, and also making sure that they are constantly turning inward and focusing on themselves and thinking about the ways that they may have implicit biases that impact the way that they are working with young people and teaching lessons. So one thing that advocates we are doing is we're creating online modules that again are working to center race and racism in a very reflective, thought out way. And so that is what I will talk about next. Next slide, please. So the training, teacher training modules that are being developed at this time, it's a series
I
of
wonder if I can
10,
get access to those
30 to 45-minute online modules that are intended for teachers in K-12 who are responsible for teaching health education or sex education. It is a partnership with Sister Reach, which is a reproductive justice agency that is out of Memphis, Tennessee, and also with Cindy Lee Alves, who is a thought partner and content creator working with me on this particular assignment. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the online modules is really to, one, support the 3R lessons that focus on the impact of racism and the reproductive justice that I just mentioned earlier. But it's also there to help hone skills for educators. And so how that will be done is the modules will be released in 2 phases. So there's a phase 1 and phase 2, 5 modules for each phase. And each phase will also be followed with virtual professional development scenarios.
Yeah, it's not
so
loading
teachers
for
will
me
have the
either, bot.
opportunity to participate in virtual professional development in order to highlight the skills that are being discussed and uplifted in the modules. Next slide, please. So I talked about the phases, right? So 2 phases. So the first phase, which is, like I said, in development at this time, is phase 1. Phase 1 will have the introduction and orientation module, which is a ground, just provides the groundwork for what is going to happen as teachers move through the 10 modules. And so it will provide information on the will provide an overview of the module series. It will provide the best ways that teachers can really use the series. It will also provide recommendations in the role as the learner. So providing opportunities for reflection, thinking about peer-to-peer conversations and work that can be done in order to constantly be reflective when thinking about the role of race and racism in sex education. It will have pre-work and have opportunities for continued work, including post-work. Because once again, this is something that is not supposed to be a check all and you check the box and you're done, right? Race has been something that has been a part of our social landscape for since the inception of this country. So it's something that is not a quick fix. This is something that will constantly need reflection and
Yeah, so I want to say, so Hal here says there's no educational value in this. What a waste of time for students and the taxpayer. And Sarah correctly responded, the value in doing this is not that we need this to create a better world. It's that they need this in order to create new activists. So you guys need to be aware that when your school says comprehensive sex education, this is what they mean. It's not about sex education. It's not about teaching the kids where the things go and how not to get pregnant and how not to get an STD and like all that stuff. It's about teaching them to be activists. That's what the comprehensive is. It's about teaching them to be social justice activists.
Working in order to deal with it and address it in a way that is productive. And so the modules will be race and racism and its impact on sex ed. That's module 1. Module 2 will really talk about white privilege and sex ed and really dive into understanding white supremacy, white privilege, and those concepts. Module 3 is racism and youth sexual health outcomes. So really diving in and looking at the social determinants of health and how racism is a social determinant and how that impacts health outcomes for.
That's how they were able to get away with saying racism is a public health crisis in 2020. Do you guys remember that? The reason that the Black Lives Matter activists were allowed to leave the house and protest in 2020 when the rest of us were told we had to stay in our houses or we wanted to kill grandma. The reason they were allowed to go out and be in big crowds of people was because how many states declared that racism was a public health crisis? And therefore, it was more important than the pandemic, but only if you were protesting in favor of Black Lives Matter. What she just said is they're going to teach that in schools.
For folks. Module 4 will be racial justice and sex ed, and module 5 will be reproductive justice and sex ed.
Okay. I am getting, no offense, Beth, I'm getting really sick of being asked this question. The only people who do not understand this, no offense, Beth, I love you, I appreciate you, I really, really do, I adore you, never go anywhere, Beth, but the only people who don't understand this are conservatives. I can show you videos of kids calling to abolish capitalism. I can show you videos of kids saying whiteness and capitalism in the same sentence. They may not understand it as explicitly as we do, but most adults on the left don't understand it as explicitly as we do. So that's not something I'm worried about. The fact is that the kids in school know that whiteness is the system. It's the system. That's why it's called systemic racism. It's the system. And the system is capitalism. They know that. It's not about race. They know that. They know the only people who don't understand this are conservatives. I'm sorry. And of course, conservative influencers will never understand this because it doesn't suit their narrative to do so. Ooh, bot. Oh, fantastic. Look at that little present. Well, we might have to put that one on the back burner for right now, Bot. We got a lot of presentations to watch this week. Thank you, though.
Next slide, please. So then the second phase will focus on topics like intersectionality, implicit bias, microaggressions, internalized racism, and then capping off this first set of 10 modules with
saved it to my watch
strategies
later,
for dismantling white supremacy in sex education. Next slide, please. So we want to let people know that this the modules are being put together in a very well thought out way. We didn't just take information and then just put it on a slide, right? It was thought out using theoretical frameworks. We focused on adult learning theory. critical race theory.
Chris Rufo refuses to wrap his head around this idea. I'm tired of covering for him as well. I tried to show Chris Rufo, maybe about a month ago, was tweeting about whiteness as property and was saying that, like, all white people, they think all white people are bad because of this whiteness as property thing that Cheryl Harris wrote and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I tweeted at him, I said, Chris, I have video of Cheryl Harris herself literally saying that whiteness is not about skin color, it's about capitalism, and Black people can engage in whiteness too. And then I showed him the video because I had clipped those very specific sections from when we watched Cheryl Harris's full speech. And I said, Chris, Cheryl Harris would seem to disagree with you on this. Why aren't you listening to Cheryl Harris, Chris? And he said, Carlin, I think you have misinterpreted Cheryl Harris's seminal paper from 1993 that whiteness is property, because they are clearly saying that white skin is property. And I said, Chris, I have a video of Cheryl Harris herself, the author of the paper that you're talking about, explicitly saying in no uncertain terms, it is on my Substack in the video vault section. I made a whole fucking page about it. Cheryl Harris herself explicitly says that whiteness is not about white skin color, that anyone can be white, that Black people can be white too, and that you cannot fight whiteness without fighting capitalism. I don't know why no, I do know why he's being so willfully dense. I do, because Chris Rufo's a smart guy. Chris Rufo's a smart guy, just like James Lindsay's a smart guy. Chris Rufo knows what's up. And Chris Rufo knows that his paycheck is cut by conservatives who are determined, bound and goddamn determined to declare that white people are the poor, abused victims of the world, and will never, ever admit that whiteness means capitalism. It means systemic racism. It means the system, because they believe that capitalism caused slavery. The woke left defines capitalism as private property. They believe that capitalism caused slavery, which was about private property ownership, that slavery created systemic racism. Systemic racism created racial disparities. And the only solution to that is to get rid of capitalism and institute equity instead. They're smart enough to know all of this. But if they admit that, then they can't use race to tee up their conservative audience and raise money and get conservatives reeing on Twitter about how white people are poor, abused victims of the world. And that's like the number one tool they have to raise money. Conservatives are never happier than when they're complaining about how poor and abused victims of the world white people are. But it's not true. It's not true. Carlin and Mays has tons of their 2023 sex ed conference, but they're hidden on their YouTube. You can only find them on the side tab. Well, Bot, can you do me a favor and DM those links to me on Twitter, please? That would be great. If you could put all those links for me in one place on Twitter, that would be amazing, Bot. Just DM it to me. I'll download them later. I appreciate you. Thank you.
We are incorporating public health education, theoretical frameworks and models. Once again, for the public health perspective, we're looking at like social ecological model and how, you know, there are levels to the way that racism impacts people and community and peers and organizations, the political landscape, et cetera. And then we're also looking through the lens of the social determinants of health, which actually ends up impacting sexual health outcomes. So from there, we're looking at the lack of education, health and healthcare access, social and political and community context, and then economic stability. And then we are also looking at and really connecting dots for educators about past and present policies and legislation that impact sex education and reproductive health outcomes. And then we are definitely looking at how to incorporate the theory of multiple intelligences. So we understand that people learn differently, and that is no different for adults, for teachers. And so in order to make sure that we are creating opportunities that are enriched, we are looking at different ways and how to provide the information in a way that is taking media clips and playing media clips and allowing you to hear different situations or different people talking about certain things related to race and racism, and then allowing for processing questions, right? Things that allow you to not only process what you just seen, but also process what it is and be reflective on how it may show up in the schools that you work in or in the communities that you live, or even your own lives. And so that is how media is being used. We're definitely going to provide readings for people to have as an opportunity to really engage and learn about the content in depth. We are looking at, like I said, applications. So
I just want to say, apparently the like button is being a hard ass today, huh, Vince?
We want to make sure that we're connecting the dots and really pointing out how, these concepts that we are discussing show up in your classrooms, in your schools, in the policies that are in.
Hang on, Andrew, I know you said I didn't have to answer it, but you're making a great point, and I do want to acknowledge this. So off topic, no need to answer, but all the is and I think phobic accusations laid against people basically being called bourgeois. Bourgeoisie, of course, means capitalist class, the class that holds the power structure, the landlords, all the things that the socialist left doesn't like. The reverse side is being considered an ally or a comrade. Andrew, that's exactly right. The reverse side is actually proletariat, but they believe that it's like the dictatorship of the proletariat, workers of the world unite sort of stuff. They believe that everyone who's a member of the proletarian class really should be a comrade or an ally, because they believe that the greatest enemy of the proletarian class is, of course, the bourgeois. And so, no, you're absolutely correct, though, that the opposite of bourgeois is like they want it to be ally or comrade. Well done.
Your schools and even legislation. So how do we talk about this with young people in real time? We will have resource pages for each of the modules. We will have glossary terms that are also there in order to make sure that we constantly have everyone on the same educational learning playing field. So there are no words or terms that are out there that people are not aware of what they mean, or what they mean particularly in the context of the modules that we are providing. And then we are working to make sure that we have the opportunity for continuing education credits. So for folks who are certified health education specialists, we are working to make sure that we can provide CHES credit, or certified health education specialist credits, for people who complete the modules and are interested in having the opportunity to gain continuing education credits for that. Next slide, please. So one thing that we're very focused on is making sure that this work does not happen in a vacuum, right? We know that when we have work, particularly something this heavy as race and racism, that we do this work in community. And so one way to make sure that advocates, that we are putting out great information, great resources for people, is to have lots of eyes looking and vetting and also providing feedback on the information and resources that we are disseminating. So ways that we are doing that is to have racial justice advisory councils. We have two that once again, provide feedback to the work. So there's the professional advisory council, which is a council of professionals that are experts in the field of race and racism, particularly when we're talking about sex education. And then we are currently recruiting for our youth advisory council. And so next slide, please. Here is the professional advisory council. As you can see, we have some real powerhouses on our council. So we have Dr. Jamie Campbell, Marietta, Gary Smith, Cindy Lee Alves, Justine Engafonte.
Side note, I am always skeptical of anyone with this type of beard now because they always end up being trans. Trans people always, okay, not always, I shouldn't say always. Some trans men have like a very nice full beard. I know our friend Mark Meets World. Mark has a great beard. Okay, he does. But I've seen way too many trans people with a beard like this, way too many, and I don't trust it. It's suspicious. Why can't you just grow a proper beard? I'm just saying.
Andrews, Gabrielle Evans, Sadia Ashard, and Trina Scott. Together, they bring a very unique lens with their level of expertise in the different containers that they have in ways to be very reflective in the best ways to provide education on really addressing race and racism in sex education. Next slide. And so our youth advisory council, again, we are currently recruiting for young people who are ages 16 to 24. The application deadline is July 15th. So if you know young people who this would be a great fit or something that they may be interested in, please do not hesitate to contact me and I will provide
16.
you with
nice?
the link to the application. We are very excited to bring young people on board because what we know is that when we are doing work for young people, we have to have young people at the table, right? That's the way that the work is done when it's done in the best way. And this project is no different, right? So we are definitely centering the voices of young people in how do we uplift and talk about the impact of racism in sex ed. What are some of the things that they need to have teachers know and understand and hear when it comes down to the education that they are deserving of? And so, again, if you know of any young people that may be interested, please don't hesitate to contact me and I'll happily send that information to you so you can get it out to the young folks in your networks. Next slide, please. And here's my contact information. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me and send me an email or give me a call, whatever way is best for you. Please, again, don't hesitate. I look forward to hearing from you all.
Well, that's basically the end of the presentation. And I will say, Bot and I both tried to go to this Advocates for Youth website to find that teacher training, and their website's completely offline. So thank heavens for small favors. Now, so I guess that brings us to the end of the presentation for today, guys. Now, as a reminder, after I go get some dinner, because I haven't eaten yet today, 7 o'clock, I haven't eaten yet, because that's the way my day went. I will be back in 2.5 hours for Nothing Remotely Controversial. We are back this week. It was my fault we did not have a show last week. It was not Joshua's fault. Normally, I blame Joshua for this stuff because it is normally his fault, but this time it is actually not. It was my fault. I take responsibility. But I will be back in 2.5 hours for nothing remotely controversial. And I do want to remind everyone, listen, guys, the Unwoke art store is still open. The Be Bourgeois design is 25% off for another couple hours. Jackie says, I pretty much prefer capitalism. I ordered my Be Bourgeois t-shirt and sweatshirt today. I hope you love them, Jackie. Take a picture, send it my way once you get them. I think it's a pretty great design. I think I might be ordering this sweatshirt myself. You know, listen, I'm wearing the Real Marxism version of this sweatshirt. I love this sweatshirt. I love it. I cut the neck off I like cutting necks off things to make it a little bit looser. And I've been wearing this. I even may have slept in this last night. It's so comfortable and it looks so cool and it's nice and baggy. I got a Fox version of that one as well. And let's see, what else do I have? We've got, of course, the mug. We've got a bag, journal, poster, framed print, whatever you guys want. Of course, the classic t-shirt as well. Got it in black and navy and, of course, purple. The purple looks so good. I need to get myself a purple one. Anyway, that's going to be 25% off in the Unwoke Art Store until midnight tonight. I do a special every day. We've only got a couple more days of these 25% off deals. So I'm doing this up until December 10th because that's kind of like the cutoff point of when I can guarantee that it's going to be there for the holidays. So if you want to do your shopping in the Unwoke Art Store, I have more than one design. Of course, this is the one on sale, but we've got our dystopian collection. We've got the Kiss Cuss. Okay. We've got the All Tears Are Tasty line. Of course, the classic, the iconic All Tears Are Tasty tumbler. Because we don't just drink liberal tears on this channel. I drink everyone's tears, especially conservative influencer tears. We've got the Real Marxism line. This is the sweatshirt that I am literally wearing right now, except not the red one. I need to get the red one, though. I need to get one of every color for this. We've got the Mad Hatter design that was on sale yesterday, the Be Different design. Lots of great stuff in the Unwoke Art Store. If you want to poke around, you can get some great holiday gifts. And of course, all of these sales do go to support the work I'm doing because unlike some people who are obviously and clearly being paid by Moms for Liberty, even though they don't want to admit it, I am completely funded by you. And that means I will never sell out and lie to you to advance a conservative political narrative. My only job is to tell you guys the truth. And the reason that is because I do things like the Unwoke Art Store where I sell merch, and I am funded almost entirely through this is the truth. I am funded almost entirely through my YouTube channel, my Substack, the Unwoke Art Store. Couple things I'm doing on the side that I'm not going to talk about because I'm not going to put that shit on the internet. But those are the things that are funding me. I'm not funded by any political organization. I'm not funded by any rich donors. Don't think I couldn't be if I really needed to be. But the reason is that I want to be completely obligated to tell you the truth so that you know when you're coming onto my channel, you're reading my work, it is coming from primary source documentation, not some organization's political talking points that they want to get out there. And the way you can help support that is by becoming a member on my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And when you become a member, tomorrow, guys, the time has come. Tomorrow, early in the morning, far earlier than I'm used to getting up, we will be starting our multi-day woke teacher training infiltration. This is my biggest spy stream ever. I'm going to take you inside a live and very, very sexy, not safe for work teacher training. And I'm going to show you what the teacher professional development program looks like. This ain't going to be some sort of high level thing of here's the things we're going to talk about. I am going to show you the actual professional development program. It is going to be a multi-day event. It's going to be the next 3 days. And we're going all day, baby. All day. There'll be breaks. Don't worry. But it's going to be great. And again, very, very, very sexy. Don't worry, Tim, because they will be there when you're ready. And what I'm going to try to do as well is, of course, I'm going to try to make clips and break down the important bits. Now, of course, I don't know exactly what these people are going to say. I have no idea. Maybe we'll watch for 3 days and nothing will happen, but I have seen the conference presentation, or I've seen the titles of the presentations. I've seen the presenters. I would be quite frankly shocked if we didn't see some cringe stuff in this conference. And so we're going to find out because we're going into it live. If you want access to that, the live access is exclusively for my supporters on my Substack, my locals, my Patreon, Twitter subscribers, YouTube channel members. I will be sending out the information and the links to watch later on today. I hope to do it now, but it might be a little bit later on tonight. And then just plan to get up early, guys, because we're starting around 10 a.m. Eastern time. Far earlier than I'm usually out of bed, because that's just how I roll. But I'm excited, guys. We are not going to be doing our regular streams for the rest of the week because we're going to be doing this instead. I hope you guys are all ready. Stock up on those snacks and those waters or those sodas or those alcohol or those vape pens or whatever you need, because this is going to be a long haul. But we're going to see what's going on and we're going to report back because ain't no one else doing this on the internet. No one else is showing you guys this. People can talk all they want about the woke teacher trainings, the re-education camps. The moms for one of the Moms for Liberty founders just tweeted, like literally yesterday, about all those woke teacher trainings, the re-education gulag that the teachers have to go through, and the woke teacher trainings. Moms for Liberty ain't focused on this. Moms for Liberty ain't showing you what's going on. Too busy paying people off to shield their political talking points, I suppose. Anyway, I gotta go. I gotta go get something to eat, but I will be back in 2.5 hours. Guys, please make sure you mount that like button on the way out the door. Make sure you're signed up on the Substack if you want to join us tomorrow. That's all I've got for right now, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.